Okay, get this. What if I told you a chip maker everyone thought was finished just blew past the entire tech market? I'm not talking about a small gain. While the Nasdaq did a solid 42%, Intel just went on an absolute tear, rocketing up an insane 311%. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull that off? All right, so we're going to break down this incredible story piece by piece. First, we'll look at the catalyst, what kicked this whole thing off. Then we'll dive into the rebound, the actual numbers. We'll see how they healed the company from the inside out, check out their big strategic pivot, and see how they're now squeezing their competitors. And finally, we'll land on the verdict. What's the real story with the valuation? So what was the spark? What kicked this whole thing off? Well, it all boils down to one massive fundamental shift, and it's all happening in the world of AI. Okay, take a look at this because it really explains everything. We're seeing a huge paradigm shift. You see, AI has been in phase 1 for a while now. That was all about training these gigantic models. Think Nvidia. That world is super GPU heavy. We're talking like 8 GPUs for every single CPU. But now we're entering phase 2. This is what we call agentic inference. It's all about these autonomous AI agents doing work in the background constantly. And that kind of work, it's all about the CPU. This massive compute shift, it plays right into Intel's hands. It's their home turf. Look, a great story is one thing, but you and I both know the numbers have to back it up, right? So let's get into the rebound and see the proof. Let's see how they got back in the black. And wow, this chart just lays it all out. The scale of this comeback is just nuts. In only 12 months, and get this, their revenue was basically stable, holding at a healthy $13.5 billion a quarter. But look at the profit. They went from a catastrophic $16.6 billion loss to a $4 billion profit. I mean, do the math. That is a $20.7 billion swing on the bottom line. It's just absolutely incredible. So you're probably asking, how in the world did they pull off that kind of financial magic? Well, it started by going back to basics. They had to heal the very foundation of the company. We're talking deep structural fixes to their manufacturing and, crucially, their cash flow. All right, the really crucial number on this chart is gross margin. For a company that actually makes stuff, this is everything. It's their lifeblood. And just look at the bottom there, they hit a trough, a really dismal 15%. But then, over just 6 quarters, look at that climb. They clawed their way all the way back up to almost 40%. That 24.4% expansion, that's the proof right there. It tells you their pricing power is back and the basic economics of the business are finally fixed. In this chart, this shows another absolutely critical moment. For a while there, Intel was just burning through cash. I mean, they were spending a ton on building out new foundries, and it led to this massive $7.19 billion hole in their free cash flow. But you see that point right there? That's the crossroads. That's the moment management flipped the switch. They got back into the positive, generating $800 million in free cash flow, and they did it while keeping their big spending stable. This is the signal. This is their return to capital efficiency. But look, it wasn't just about patching up the old model. Intel also made a really, really smart strategic pivot. And that move is now paying off big time, with massive new efficiencies and whole new markets opening up. And this slide right here shows some incredible discipline. See, they didn't just talk a big game about becoming a foundry for other companies. Nope. They cleaned up their own house first. Look at the numbers. R&D expenses trimmed way down from $4.38 billion to $3.37 billion. And SG&A, all the sales and overhead costs as a piece of their revenue, dropped from over 12% to just 7.6%. By getting leaner, they healed their own cost structure, and that put them in the perfect spot to start winning over outside clients and become a real alternative to someone like TSMC. Okay, so Intel is healed up, they're lean, and they're pivoting hard. So what does that mean for everyone else in the industry? Well, this is where things get really interesting. This is where the squeeze begins. Yeah, this slide really lays out the new power dynamic perfectly. On one side, you've got what we're calling the Intel war chest. We're talking an $88.2 billion tangible book value. Their working capital ratio has basically doubled. This gives them insane supply power and the ability to dominate on pricing. And on the other side, you've got the fabless constraint. These are all the competitors who have to rely on other foundries that are already totally booked up. The whole game, it's completely flipped on its head. All right, so let's recap. We've seen the catalyst, we've seen the incredible financial turnaround, and we've seen their new competitive edge. So that brings us to the big final question. The verdict. Is the price right? Has the market actually priced this comeback correctly? Okay, let's break down this final verdict. The way I see it, the market has basically priced in the fact that Intel survived. The next phase is all about growth. We've watched their price-to-book multiple go from a super distressed 0.79x all the way up to a much healthier 3.72x. And why? Well, it's because they hit every single milestone they needed to. Manufacturing margins healing? Check. Free cash flow turned positive? Check. And those big AI tailwinds pushing everything forward? Double check. The turnaround, my friends, is officially complete. So that leaves us with the million-dollar question. The market definitely rewarded them for surviving, but is a 3.7 times price-to-book multiple really justified for what comes next? Are we looking at just the beginning for a reborn Intel, or has the stock price maybe gotten a little ahead of itself? I really want to know what you think. Drop a comment below and let me know. And hey, if you want more deep dives just like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button.